Welcome back to the Formation Lap with Todd and Brad. And what an exciting Barcelona Grand Prix. And Todd, I'm going to bring you in here in a second, but Lewis Hamilton finally back in P1. And
Yay.
I think whether you're a Ferrari fan or not, um, or if you just started following F1 or you've been it for years, I think you were so happy for Lewis Hamilton on Sunday after a really tough last couple of years at Mercedes and a very, very rough year last year in his inaugural season with Ferrari. There were many wondering in the motor racing world, was Lewis done? Was he washed up? And this season we've been seeing improvement, improvement, improvement. Lewis finally put it all together on Sunday. His first career win besides a sprint race for Ferrari, and
Yeah.
he looked like the old Lewis. So Todd, I'll welcome you in here to our Barcelona recap. What a great race, and like I said, no matter what team you follow, you had to be pulling for Lewis Hamilton and feel good for him.
Oh yeah, yeah, and it's great to be back. And you and I weren't able to watch it together. We had to watch it after we got home, and so we didn't talk to each other. And as I looked at some of the things that were happening, I noticed immediately Lewis is on soft tires. What's going on here? So that really started the excitement for me. And Barcelona wasn't just a race; it was a history lesson too. I mean, when you think
Hmm.
about Lewis has earned, his first Ferrari victory, his 106th career win, and became the oldest Grand Prix winner since 1970. And another history thing, it's the first all British podium, 1, 2, 3, since 1968. Okay. So, those things don't come along very often. And, it's cool. And as a guy in my 60s, let me tell you, I admit I love this story. Lewis is 41 racing against 19-year-old, racing against, many of them are in their 20s, mid 20s,
Hmm.
right? Yep. On Saturday, experience overruled youth here. And, everyone who's ever been told you're too old to do anything, I'm smiling today, and for that. And here's another thing I wanted to look at too, because it was really the Ferrari team too, because they listened to Lewis, right, with that experience. So because you've heard some of our podcasts, folks, I always like, what in the world's going on with the strategy at Ferrari? But after the race, here's what really resonated with me. And I don't know if you listened to it, and if you didn't, go back and just hear his radio. It wasn't like, woohoo, I did it. He said, "You have helped me achieve this dream." Okay, that's all he said. And what does that say? That's huge. That's experience. It wasn't just a rookie saying, "Yay, I won." This was a seven-time world champion, realizing that this is it, and this is one of the greatest drivers of F1 history. And as he was talking about it, he also added the word "big shock." Okay, I don't know what that means yet, but it could be with inside the Ferrari group, because he's done a lot of, different items to say, this is what we need to do. And after everything he accomplished, he was still surprised and humbled at the moment. And as a fan in my 60s, I love it, because Monaco, as we talked earlier, was it. And then eventually you realize in life, which that's what I'm realizing now, and it's not about the trophies, it's about, really the people that bring it together. And then the last thing on this, Brad, and you can comment in a minute, but Nico Rosberg and him were teammates at Mercedes, and on this track they wrecked, and
Hmm.
they were pretty good teammates until that day. And at this track, some years ago, and they became almost enemies on the same team.
Yeah.
If you didn't get to see it, it happened to be that Nico was the broadcaster and the um, one that gets to talk to the race winners right at the very end. He said that was a legendary win. And reason I bring that up, folks, is because there were fierce rivals. He could have just said, "Oh, that was a great win there, Lewis," or whatever, but he realized that what it took to win, and now at that age, it's amazing, and nobody understands how hard it is to beat Lewis as it was Nico. And now here's Lewis doing it. So Brad, I'm talking from an old dude's perspective. excited about. So thank you for taking a few minutes,
Absolutely.
folks. Let me just talk out loud about that because it was more than a race. And yes, Lewis and the Ferrari team had a great strategy, three-stop strategy. And you and I were, when we talked on the preview and stuff, really two, maybe three stops? They figured it out and said, and what it's telling me, they've got a car that's about ready to come to the level. And they're going to leave Charles behind if Charles doesn't come around. But so anyway, I said all that. What's your thoughts as a young dude?
Todd,
Here.
beautifully said. It reminded me of the old Lewis at Mercedes when he was this dominant. That's exactly what it brought me back to. And Todd, I'm sure you've heard it, but when Bono and Lewis, when Lewis back in the Mercedes days, when Lewis was chasing first, or he knew that he needed to put in a gap. What was it? It was hammer time. It was time to
That's right.
hammer down. And Ferrari, his engineer did not say that, but you could. I just taught in that last 25, 30 laps as Lewis was starting to put in those lap times. I'm like, oh man, I started getting that just kind of like butterflies in my stomach. I'm like, oh man, we are about to see the legendary, the old Lewis Hamilton. And Todd, I mean, before Kimmy and before Kimmy's retirement and Charles' retirement, was it lap 61, 62, something like that? I mean,
Six-two.
Lewis was what, 18 seconds ahead, and I think
Almost, it was 20, a little over 20
yeah,
seconds.
20 seconds ahead. I mean, Todd, that's the old Lewis. And I mean,
Yes.
it was I mean, we're talking about one of the greatest of all time. I mean, and
Yeah.
it was absolutely incredible just to see him just lap after lap just improving. And Todd, the Mercedes were not catching him. And you said it, Ferrari has put a lot of time, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears in this car, and Lewis has had a lot of input, and it was incredible to see him do that. And I think it really made the rest of the paddock take notice of like, oh man, it may not be just Mercedes. Lewis Hamilton is
Yeah.
coming for that drivers championship, and so it was incredible. I am so happy for Lewis. I'm so happy for Ferrari. It was so cool to see Fred celebrate with him. And then, my last point before we kind of get into some more of what happened in the race, you hit the nail on the head. Nico Rosberg, these guys were really good friends.
Yeah.
They joined forces at Mercedes, and then 2016, even before that, but these two collided in Barcelona and really, became kind of they couldn't stand each other, and
No, they were
they're not
rivals.
they're not as close as they once were, but they have both said there's absolutely a level of respect there, and I agree with you. I thought it was so cool that Nico was just so passionate, and he was so complimentary of what Lewis achieved. And man, I would love to see Nico back in F1. I don't. It's not going to happen. He's enjoying his retired life, but it was so cool. It was a great race. Todd, let's get into it and give me a few guys and maybe a constructor or two that you see trending up after the Barcelona race.
Yeah. And, you know, what I love about it is that it's going to be Ferrari, number one, because, 18 months ago or so, Ferrari hired Lewis. He didn't hire Lewis to sell hats, more
No,
Ferrari hats or anything.
no,
They hired him to win, but
right,
in some of our podcasts, I've said I think Lewis has lost it. He just hadn't. But I think what happened now that I see it and understand it even more, he was patiently figuring it out, and then he got a new engineer.
right,
They got some breaks that he liked. So all these things that we were missing, he had a plan, and I think that's where Ferrari is coming up, and Fred is part of it. That's shaking some of the and I've been to the Ferrari factory, over in Italy, and very traditional, very, this is the way we do it. So there's been some things that they've, worked through. So to answer your question, I think Ferrari is the trending up, even though we've been saying, well, they look close. They got a new engine coming, in 2 weeks. So what is that going to do in the straights if they really, and all the paddock is saying that, they have some of the best chassis
yeah,
making the corners. And folks, what that means is it's so tight, they can make some corners faster than the other cars right now. And so I think they're doing it. Your team, McLaren, they pushed through, and Lando, ended up on the podium. And I think they're coming through Mercedes is doing well. Their engines are still having problems because you're seeing
Yeah.
it in
It was
Mercedes.
it was Kimmy this time too.
Yeah, but you're seeing a McLaren has had
Yep.
key power unit problems and Alpine.
Yep.
But I think to answer your question there, Brad, is you got Ferrari, you got McLaren, and you got Alpine. I think
Hmm.
those are your three trending ups with Mercedes right there. Red Bull is nowhere to be really
Yeah.
seen.
Yeah.
But who do you think's trending up those constructors and drivers?
Absolutely agree with you. I mean, we got to talk about Racing Bulls, Todd. Man, they just
Oh yeah,
they continue to impress me and put it together. A shout out real quick to our listener in New Zealand. We appreciate the comments, appreciate the
yeah,
support. Your guy Liam Lawson continues just to really impress me. And here's a guy that he got booted from Red Bull last year after 2 or 3 races. I mean, he was
yeah.
barely that to me, they really didn't give him a fair shot. But look, Liam has found his place at Racing Bulls, and
I agree.
it's honestly entertaining to watch him. You mentioned Alpine. The others, Todd, it's so hit and miss. I mean, and we're going to talk about some others, but Williams is having some struggles.
Oh yeah,
They can't put it together. Um, Haas is I think right there. They're not quite where Alpine and Racing Bulls are, but I think they're close. But
been struggling.
it's getting really really entertaining. Todd,
And Audi's got a flash here and there. I mean,
they do.
Hulkenberg was a freak thing,
Yeah, and
but
and
he was there.
absolutely. And for those fans, if you didn't get to see it or you weren't quite aware, Nico had an unbelievable qualifying. He made it to Q3. I believe he started in ninth. And guy we were just about, Liam hit the gravel and just this is crazy. A rock flew back and hit Nico's emergency switch off, and so he had to retire the car. I mean, we never hear this may never happen in F1
No,
again. And you feel for Nico, and if you don't know much of Nico's story, go find it somewhere because this
yeah,
guy was thought to be the next up and coming guy. He's had one podium in F1,
yeah.
and that was last year in Silverstone. And so he's a guy that everyone roots for. He's unfortunately just had some terrible luck, and
Oh
and
yeah. I mean, it was the size of your finger
right, and
that it hit,
it just hit the
and then
emergency
he was
shut
like,
off, right,
"What?
and
What happened?"
and unfortunately had to. And Todd, I mean, if that doesn't happen, he probably ends up in the. I think he ends up in the point. So
I
feel for
do.
him. Haas is right there.
Yeah.
Todd, a couple drivers. You mentioned Lewis is definitely trending up. I mean, Todd, I'm of the opinion this can be a hot take. I don't think it's necessarily George Russell that's Kimmy's biggest competition. I think it's Lewis Hamilton.
I do too.
I honestly I think George is right there. I think George is going to continue to push. And look, George had a good race Sunday. He did get passed by Kimmy there late, but what happens as soon as Kimmy passed him? That the
Power unit. Yeah.
Mercedes reliability kicks in. So George is still in the hunt. Thought Lando had a beautiful race, man. It was an interesting weekend for McLaren. I think we are clearly back of Mercedes and Ferrari. I'm okay with that. I've accepted that. To me, if we can get on the podium, I think that's a win. But Lando had a beautiful race. He just said, and I really admire Lando what he did. I think he's realized that the car is not where it has been, but Lando sat back and said, I'm going to race a smart race, an efficient race. I'm going to save my tires. And what ends up happening, Kimi retires and Lando ends up on the podium. Great, great weekend for Lando. Oscar's got to figure it out. Not quite sure what's going
Yeah.
on with Oscar, but he'll get there. Todd, trending down. We've talked about your other guy. Charles has had a couple of really, really tough weekends, and
Yeah.
a bad qualifying wreck, and looked like he was making some spots up in the race, and then he had to retire the car, just about the same time Kimmy did. Todd, you know, Kimmy qualified behind George, and then of course made a really good pass, but reliability issues for Mercedes. So I wouldn't necessarily say a terrible weekend for Kimmy, but the reality is that Kimmy didn't score any points, and Lewis ate into his lead, and
Yeah,
George
he
ate
did.
into his lead. So that's tough. But
Yeah.
Todd, who do you else between drivers and constructors? Who do you see kind of trending down after this weekend?
Well, Charles is it, and we found out more about his contract too, and he has a lifetime contract. I mean,
Yeah, Charles is not going anywhere, right?
yeah, but what does that do to you though? what have I got to do? And he's got Lewis now that's going to really fire him
Right,
up.
right.
I get it, and he's had what he's had over the last three races is going to mentally work on him. He's going to
Absolutely.
come through. I mean, but here's why I look at it. Charles has been there for what, about 6 years now? Is that right?
No, it's I believe it's been 7 or 8. It's
Okay.
it's it's been quite a while,
So
yeah.
he's had his chance. Now, did he have the same clout that Lewis did to come in and say, I want this, this, and this? No.
No, no.
So I think he might benefit from Lewis coming in, but I think right now he's trending down.
Yeah.
And I think Hamilton now owns the Ferrari, and Ferrari's got to make a decision. I need to come up with a driver one and driver two.
Which and Todd just cut I think we clearly know that Lewis is in the hunt right now. Charles is fourth in the drivers, and
Yeah.
he's got so I think you brought up a good point. To me, Lewis is clearly number one right now.
Yeah, and so I think he Aston Martin, they're gone.
Oh
Even
yeah,
though they're coming with something, they just keep trending down. Cadillac too, but you know, Kimmy, he found out he was human, and now it's
yeah,
really and it's not trending down, but he's going to trend a little bit because he was hunting George and he tracked him down.
yeah.
So
Oh yeah,
I think George is the one that's trending down, even though he did well, is my opinion, because Kimmy is on the hunt and he keeps catching George and he
yeah.
keeps figuring out to get past George. And so that tells me he's there. This will put a little bit of, bump in the road here because it's not now your championship because you win. It's a championship because you have to figure out how to get through these weekends.
And Tyler, something else we just talked about Ferrari having to make the decision with 1 and 2. This is now to me putting more pressure on Mercedes because Mercedes is now saying, okay, it's just not our two guys in our own paddock that's going for it. That while that's tough to manage, it may be a little bit easier. Now it's hey, Lewis Hamilton's coming in. Todd, if we see it get later in the season to where uh it's Lewis and Kimmy, and George is in front of Kimmy. Toto might have to make the call. Hey, George,
Yep.
you're gonna have to switch places with Kimmy because we need these points, and that's not going to make for a happy George Russell. So,
No, you're right.
Todd, I thought was interesting. I saw on the F1 app. George is now 50 points behind Kimmy, so that's 2 wins with Kimmy scoring no points. So George is in contention, but he's got to keep this up, or what we just mentioned is going to start happening later in the season, where it's like George, you're going to have to give up position. Kimmy's fighting.
Yeah.
He's got a 7-time world champion Lewis Hamilton on his heels, and so this is going to be man. What a fantastic storyline! The 19-year-old versus the veteran Lewis Hamilton,
41-year-old.
and by the way, fans, we are not discounting George. George is still very
Oh
much
no.
in this, but that's just the way it's trending
He
right
came back.
now.
He came back with a different attitude and
Right.
realized, hey, I'm it. But I mean, look at it this way: if you add George's age and Kimmy's age, it's almost Lewis's age.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
so that's what it tells me that your experience is going to do it. And when Lewis again said, "You helped me realize my dream," he's 41 years old.
It's
He's
so
got
cool.
trophy
So
rooms
cool.
everywhere because his dream was to win with Ferrari as a little
And
kid,
that
and
is
there it
that
was.
it's so cool. And you're thinking like this is a guy that he won a world championship at McLaren. He dominated at Mercedes. I'm like, what does this guy have to accomplish? But Ferrari with all its prestige and everything, he wanted
Yeah.
to go race for them and he wanted to win races with them and win a world championship. And it's so cool to see. It's so cool to see Lewis just get that energy back and get that killer instinct back. Todd, I did want to ask you, and we mentioned a few minutes ago, but we have Mercedes, Ferrari, and McLaren. We have Alpine and Racing Bulls and kind of the rest of the midfield. Where do you see Red Bull at? Like, I mean, Max was in there, but not really in there. Isaac was in there, but where is Red Bull in all
Yeah,
this?
I think Red Bull is going to struggle because they've got the curse now of they can't do any adjustments on their engine
And they
this
have
year.
the best rated engine, which is crazy.
Best engine, but they can't figure out the car. And folks,
No,
what that means is they're not able this year to do any tweaks to it. But Mercedes gets a couple of tweaks. Ferrari gets two tokens they call it.
that's
And
huge.
this
That's
is going to be
huge.
crazy. But I think there's some management, and this is just me talking. There's some management going on over there, or they're maybe trying to get Max now that he realizes he's not in the right team and maybe not be able to go somewhere. Maybe they're working him into a leadership role at
It's
Red Bull.
interesting. Yeah.
Red Bull. I don't know, but
Yeah.
I tell you what you said earlier. Racing bulls are going to, I think, show up Red Bull here before too long
They look
because
good.
and Liam and Limlad are on my fantasy team, so
They
thank you,
go. They
Racing Bulls.
go.
But and I think they're going to come along. Isaac's going to have a chance, okay,
Yeah.
or Isaac is how they say it in some of the European places. But I think that's where they are, and unfortunately, Racing Bulls could catch up when Alpine could go, and then next thing you know, Red Bull could be somewhere around six or something, which is crazy.
Right.
But it
Just look
also
at,
tells me that it's always been about Max, right?
yes,
And so
yes.
where's the rest of it? So, but we'll see
I
what
I
happens.
mean, and Todd, just looking at the constructor standings real quick. I mean, Red Bull is in a solid fourth, but they're 32 points ahead. So I mean, you take out a couple races where Red Bull only scores one driver points, and Alpine and Racing Bulls, both of theirs guys have been pretty consistent. I mean, we're talking about Red
Yeah,
Bull maybe being a midfield team, which is just absolutely unheard of.
yeah, I know. So I don't know what's going to go on, but I mean, Brad, as we look forward, as we looked at the one trending up and trending down, we've got a similar type. This is European races, but the next one is the ring, right? The
Oh yeah,
Red Bull ring.
Red Bull Ring, and this one, fans, if you've not watched this one in much detail, it is flat out speed. There's going to be elevation changes, long sweeping. It is. This is one of my favorite races, and this is. And Todd, the reason I kind of want to talk about Red Bull is this is Red Bull's home track.
Yes.
There's going to be a big old bull in the middle. A big old metal bull in the middle of the track. It is fun to watch. It's high speed. The drivers push themselves. It's not this weekend. It's next weekend. So it is, Todd. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, and the way I look at this is, and now that I see some of it coming together, Ferrari's playing this right, bringing the new engine to the fast
Oh
place
yeah.
with their car.
Oh yeah.
And now Lewis is realizing that speed doesn't always win. It's, the strategy and keep
That's right.
adapting because who would have guessed three stops
Yeah.
would have won this race? And yeah, the VSC came in, but if you look at the record, the some of the numbers, Lewis was going to catch him. And, I think that's what
That's right.
we're going to see.
And Todd, just kind of a final point. We have for years and years. It's been, oh, that Ferrari strategy cost another one. Well, guess what? The Ferrari strategy really paid off. And Todd, in my opinion, that is because of Lewis Hamilton. I think Lewis has really, really made. You brought up such a good point earlier. Ferrari's very used to doing things. We're going to do
Yeah.
things this way, this way. Lewis has changed that mindset. While I think we've seen a little bit of a culture change. I mean, it's been good for Lewis, but it's also been good for Ferrari that they've adapted some and they've really taken the advice of what Lewis sees and just Lewis's experience and how great of a driver he is.
Well, yeah,
So
and that's why I think it's going to echo. He said big shock. Who knows? That might have been at everybody. It could have been at
yeah,
his own team.
yeah,
And it was about people. It wasn't
right.
about him. It was about people. And here's what I think is going to happen in the paddock. Your racing bulls, they're close. I think they're going to
Hmm.
push the envelope and say, hey, we can be right there at number four
Yeah,
and jump over. What would it be great for racing bulls to jump over Red Bull,
yeah, yeah.
And fans, I'm not, for anybody, but then you got McLaren's. I think McLaren's going to do well. So in the end, I think Barcelona was a great history lesson, as we talked
Yep.
about. But it showed us old folks that, hey, if you keep doing something, you put your mind to it, you can overcome anything. And for Formula One, is always about the history and what a great weekend. You could have written some of this
No.
better. But Brad, as we close up, I mean, it was fun.
Yep.
It was hot. And so as we go to Austria, anything else we want to do before we close up here?
No, I mean, definitely encourage you to tune into Austria. It is going to be high speed. It's going to be fun. Um, Once again, I think Lewis winning this. I think it's the tipping point. I think it's made everyone realize, okay, it's not just Mercedes going to run away with this thing. Ferrari is for real, and It's gonna be fun.
Yeah, that's why I wore red,
There you
white, and
go.
black.
There you
See.
go. There you go. Thank you, fans, so much for tuning in. Please give us a comment on what you saw in Barcelona. Give us a comment on what you're anticipating for the Red Bull Ring in Austria coming up next weekend. Please give this video a like and hit that subscribe button. We are enjoy doing this. We are just continuing to bring you F1 content, some regular guys talking elite racing, but encourage you. We will have the Red Bull Ring Austria Grand Prix video up next week when in our preview when that race gets ready to kick off. But in the meantime, this is Todd and Brad. See you next time on the Formation Lap.
And old guys rule.
See you later.